Up next in the broadcast, in a month where North Korea traditionally makes provocations, it's a crucial week ahead as Seoul and Washington end their annual joint military drills, and Pyongyang celebrates the birthday of North Korea's founder, Kim Il-sung. Korea's biggest cigarette manufacturer may have won last week's Supreme Court ruling, but the National Health Insurance Service is now going after 3 tobacco companies for smoking-related diseases. Russia and Ukraine point the finger at each other during an emergency UN Security Council session for the escalating crisis. Kiev wants to root out what it says are pro-Russia terrorists. Primetime News begins now.
Good evening to our viewers in Korea, and hello to those of you who are watching from around the world. It's Monday, April 14th here in Seoul, and I'm Choi Yoo-sun.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thank you so much for joining us. While North Korea will be celebrating the birth of its late founder, Kim Il-sung, this week, South Korea and the international community will be watching with anticipation to see if the regime launches another provocation, if history is any indication.
Our foreign affairs correspondent Hwang Sung-hee starts us off with what could be a crucial week for inter-Korean relations.
April has historically been a month of provocations for North Korea. It was in April that the communist regime conducted 2 of its 5 long-range ballistic missile launches and unilaterally closed down the inter-Korean factory zone in the north. The month has a number of politically significant events, and provocations are one way for the North Korean leader to demonstrate his strength and power for regime consolidation. If history repeats itself, this week could turn out to be a crucial one in inter-Korean relations. Tuesday marks the birthday of North Korea's founder, Kim Il-sung, and on Friday, the joint military drills between Seoul and Washington will come to an end. North Korea's notification to Japan of possible missile launches by Thursday is also raising concerns. This comes amid back-to-back meetings between Seoul, Washington, Beijing, and Tokyo as they try to jumpstart the long-stalled 6-party talks. The multilateral dialogue, consisting of the 2 Koreas, the U.S., China, Japan, and Russia, has not taken place since late 2008. Some experts say the North could back away from further provocations and instead return to the negotiating table.
There's a chance North Korea could give up its nuclear tests if the 6-party talks on denuclearizing the North resume. Pyongyang could make a gesture to improve inter-Korean ties first.
Still, most experts warn of another round of provocations by Pyongyang ahead of U.S. President Barack Obama's visit to Seoul and Tokyo at the end of this month. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Just last week, Korea's biggest tobacco company won a 15-year-long legal battle filed by individuals seeking compensation for smoking-related illnesses.
But now it's the National Health Insurance Service's turn, and they think they've got a much better shot at winning. Our Kwon So-ah has this report.
For the first time ever here in Korea, a public organization, the National Health Insurance Service, is suing cigarette companies to recover medical costs incurred due to tobacco-related illnesses. Less than a week ago, 7 individuals and their families lost a 15-year-long case against Korea's biggest cigarette manufacturer, KT&G. This time, the plaintiff is the National Health Insurance Service, which filed a $52 million complaint Monday against KT&G, as well as Philip Morris and British American Tobacco. The health agency says nearly 4% of its total health insurance payouts have gone toward tobacco-related treatments since 2011.
As you all are well aware, smoking cigarettes affects the nation's people, and especially women and adolescents. We are going to proceed with the legal battle for the future of our nation and to guarantee that health insurance costs are maintained.
The Health Insurance Service will focus on proving the cause and effect relationship between cancer and smoking, along with any breaches of the law that the tobacco companies may have committed. It isn't much different from the case presented by the individuals who lost their case last week. The National Health Insurance Service says due to its big database and its thorough investigation, it has a better chance than individuals of winning in this case.
KTNG, the defendant in the individual's case, refused to reveal a lot of its data. We understand that a lack of information provided caused the plaintiffs to lose.
The insurance service emphasized that the entire trial won't just be taking place behind closed doors in court, but that every bit of the process will be openly shared with the public. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye visited a vocational high school in central Seoul this Monday, where she promised to bring about a society where graduates are hired based on their work abilities, not on which schools they were educated at. After observing senior-level classes in electromechanics, President Park told students and parents the government will develop a standard to assess a person's job capabilities so that he or she won't be treated unfairly because of their educational background. Currently, there are some 140 specialized high schools in Korea which cooperate with businesses to foster customized personnel for specific industries through practical and on-site training. More than 40% of their graduates found jobs last year. Win a job at Samsung? Prepare to get run through the ringers. It all starts with an aptitude test, which about 100,000 people have already taken this year alone. It underscores the appeal of working for Korea's largest company, but also that the nation's economy could be in trouble if Samsung hits hard times. Our Kim Ji-yeon reports.
On an early Sunday morning, this large group of people is heading toward a local school ground. They're not adolescents looking for extra credit. They're job applicants to Korea's largest company, Samsung. Working for the conglomerate is considered a dream job as it offers stability, benefits, and good pay. So what does it take to get hired? The first hurdle applicants must clear is a Samsung aptitude test. If they want an interview, they have to pass the standardized test first. It evaluates a person's abilities in a wide range of subjects, including linguistics, math, and logic. There's heated competition among job applicants each and every year, and this year is no exception.
I could have graduated college late last year, but postponed it to study for the Samsung aptitude test. I even took classes to get a good score.
Since the beginning of the year, more than 100,000 people have applied for employment at Samsung, but just around 4,000 are expected to land a regular paying job. That means that only 1 out of 20 people will get in.
Reflecting this fervor to get a job at Samsung, there's a variety of workbooks on every subject of the Samsung aptitude test, illustrating just how much influence the Korean conglomerate has on the Korean economy and society.
Samsung Group's total market value was more than $286 billion in 2012, comprising nearly 26% that of all listed companies in Korea. At the same time, combined operating profits of Samsung and its affiliates were nearly 16% of the listed companies in 2012, at around $29 billion. Market researcher CEO Scores suggests a need to find ways for other Korean companies to boost their revenues as well. They highlight the risks to the Korean economy if Samsung faces external risks that hurt their profit margin. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
K-pop, Korean cinema and dramas, and of course, Korean food may be in vogue around the world now. But in terms of revenue, there's another Korean cultural sector that far outperforms the others, the gaming industry. Our Shin Se-min has more on the growing prospects of gaming Korea.
More Korean games are being exported than Korean pop music. According to a report released by the Korea Finance Corporation on Monday, the nation's game exports topped $2.6 billion in 2012. That is more than 10 times larger than exports of Korean music in the same year. The gaming figure refers to all online, video, mobile, PC, and arcade games being sold outside the country. The report says game-related exports also far outstrip those of knowledge information, movies, publishing, and advertisements. While video and arcade game sales have tumbled since 2011, the growing prevalence of smartphones helped mobile games contribute to the overall boost in sales. The local industry has been doing very well in recent years, but Korea is still not a leading country in the global market. The US and Japan top the international market share with over 18% each. China, Britain, and Korea follow with 12%, 8%, and 6% respectively. Experts say fostering the right environment for industries such as games, movies, animation, and design is crucial, as they'll be able to create more added value in the future. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Domestic violence against children catapulted to the spotlight with two recent cases of child beatings that resulted in death.
And the offenders on record are overwhelmingly the child's own parents. Our Son Jung-in takes a look at the continuous rise of child abuse cases in the nation.
According to the Ministry of Health and Welfare, the number of child abuse cases reported last year amounted to 6,800, up nearly 400 cases from a year earlier. But the actual figure is estimated to be far higher, considering those that go unreported. Among the cases on record, 80% of the children were victimized by a parent. Biological fathers were the most common abuser, accounting for 41%, followed by biological mothers at 35%, and stepmothers and stepfathers at 2% and 1.6% respectively. If they weren't being abused at home, the most common place was at child welfare centers or daycare centers, where nearly 10% of cases were reported. 40% of the victims said they were abused almost every day. The harsh reality is that similar findings are reported every year, but nothing is done to address the problem. The most recent cases, in which two women received 10 and 15-year prison sentences for beating their stepdaughters to death, has shed even more light on the problem. They've prompted the public once again to call on the government to come up with detailed measures to prevent child abuse and protect children. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
Last week, two separate cases of child abuse where stepmothers beat their children to death stirred the nation.
Many said the ruling was too light, and the government quickly responded by saying it will get tough on child abusers. But how tough is enough? Joining us now is Hwang Jung-uk, professor of law at Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here.
So, Professor, one stepmom was sentenced to 10 years and another was sentenced to 15 years, and the judge ruled that it was not murder, it was just causing bodily injury leading to death. Do you think the sentences were too lenient?
Well, I think you do need to make a distinction between murder and, 상해치사, what you described, which in American criminal terms, the closest counterpart would be voluntary manslaughter. And the fact that the law makes that distinction is that the murder charges are basically reserved for cold-hearted killers who premeditate and have a specific intent to murder. And basically, I guess the courts have looked at these stepmothers and didn't really think that they actually intended for the stepchildren to die. I think that's why the murder charges were not applied and voluntary manslaughter charges, the 상해치사 charges, are applied. In which case, if you look at the sentences, it is within the sentencing guidelines.
Well, a government report found that 80% of child abusers were in fact parents, and this could have something to do with many Koreans still accepting spanking by parents as a form of discipline. From a legal perspective, at what point does it become child abuse?
I think the line is pretty hard to draw, and I think that does cause a lot of trouble for both police as well as child welfare services workers. In extreme cases like, two cases we have here where two children have unfortunately died, I mean, it's clear that it was too excessive. But at the same time, at what point do police get to intervene? At what point do government workers, the social workers, do they intervene?
So is extending prison terms the answer? Will extra prison time or the threat of extra prison time really deter child abusers?
I mean, from deterrence point of view, my feeling is that, do you parents out there really think about, yeah, I'll get 10 years versus 30 years with the law change? I mean, it's really hard for me to think that that kind of premeditation is going on when parents are, even the abusive parents are beating their children. But I suppose what I would like to see is more resources devoted to, to preventing cases like this before they become murder trials.
And what infrastructure do we have here in Korea to report and resolve domestic violence?
So there are children's protection services, social workers who work on cases like this. Now the government has new law, the special law on children protection, which will come into effect in September, which basically means that the additional legal steps that these social workers can theoretically take. However, the current criticism is that basically there is no money in the budget to devote to have more social workers and give them more resources. So, we might have a lot of additional legal tools, but these workers on the ground might not have the resources to actually implement them.
So for those people who say that these mothers should have gotten the maximum life in jail sentence, what would you tell them in the sense of where they should focus their energies? Are there other legal outlets or channels that could get this sense of justice?
I suppose, you could argue that sentencing guidelines have been a little lenient in some cases. And I've noticed that U.S., particularly when it comes to murder or manslaughter, do tend to have more harsh sentences. But at the same time, I think before jumping up on the bandwagon because all these sensational headlines are out there, I think people should keep in mind the U.S. is actually a bit of an outlier in this case. U.S. actually has a higher ratio of people incarcerated than the rest of the OECD countries, for example. So I think Koreans should, looking at cases like this, do need to think a little rationally, think about, do we want to have highly criminalized society, high police society, as opposed to putting more resources to, save children at risk at earlier stages by having, more robust social services.
All right. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And it's time to check on stories making headlines on the global front, from the deepening crisis in Ukraine to another leak at the Fukushima nuclear plant. We go live to our Paul Lee at the News Center.
Paul, let's start with Ukraine. It looks like Kiev has given a final ultimatum to protesters in the eastern part of the country. How is the situation unfolding now?
Well, Ukraine's acting President Alexander Turchinov called on all pro-Russian activists to leave the government buildings they are occupying by Monday morning or else. But many of the armed separatists have not backed down. Meanwhile, on the diplomatic front, Russia has taken the case to the UN Security Council. Our Connie Lee has more.
At an emergency UN Security Council session on Sunday, it was a war of words between Ukrainian and Russian officials. They blamed each other for the increasing crisis in eastern Ukraine.
We are trying to avoid any clashes. We do not want blood on our territory. The conflict is spied from outside. That's why we address Russia Federation. I know it is the 8th or 10th time. Don't interfere.
The meeting, called by Russia, came about after Ukraine's president said he would launch an anti-terrorist operation against pro-Russian forces in his country. Ukraine has vowed military action against the pro-Russian activists if they don't leave the government buildings they are occupying by Monday morning. Russia wants the U.S. to stop Kiev from carrying out the operation.
Let us focus on our attention on what we can actually do in this case, and I'm looking here at my Western colleagues.
But the U.S. is asking Russia to withdraw its troops from the Ukrainian border.
It is hard to reconcile the behavior of the Russian Federation, the propaganda of the Russian Federation, the military actions of the Russian Federation, which range from the massing of 40,000 troops on the border to the subversive activities inside Ukraine.
And despite the latest threats out of Ukraine, pro-Russia activists remain inside the seized government buildings in eastern Ukraine. Britain's UN ambassador says there were up to 40,000 equipped Russian troops amassed on the Russian border with Ukraine. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
And turning now to the ongoing search for that missing Malaysian airliner. It's day 39 of the multinational search for Flight 370, and still there are no confirmed signs of debris. As for those possible pings from the plane's black box data recorder, search teams say they haven't detected any further signals since last week. Despite the lack of progress, Australian Search Chief Angus Houston says a sophisticated underwater vehicle called Bluefin 21 will be deployed to scour the floor of the Indian Ocean. But the U.S. Navy drone, according to Houston, could take several months to search the area. Investigators say they're confident that the wreckage of the Boeing 777 lies some 1,600 kilometers northwest of the city of Perth. And let's turn to Japan, where the operator of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant has warned of yet another leak. The Tokyo Electric Power Company says that about 200 tons of highly radioactive water were redirected into the wrong building, flooding the basement of the crippled nuclear plant. According to Japanese media, the leak was discovered by workers on Saturday, but the faulty pumps which caused the flooding were halted on Sunday. KEPCO officials say the contaminated water has not breached the outer perimeter of the facility and that they are still investigating the cause of the leak. That wraps up our look at international stories making headlines around the world. I'll see you back here tomorrow night.
Hello and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm Stephen Che. The Korean Basketball League season came to an official close on Monday with its award ceremony. They say fine wine gets better with age. I think this year's MVP can attest to that. The LG Sakers' Moon Tae-jung, who turns 39 this year, was named MVP by a huge margin, 71 out of 98 votes, for providing the offensive spark for the league's top team in the regular season. Meanwhile, teammate Kim Jong-gyu won the top rookie honors, while LG coach Kim Jin won Coach of the Year. SK's Chu Hee-jung got the 6th Man Award, while KCC rookie Kim Min-gu came in first in fan voting. And heading to Augusta, the PGA Tour's first major of 2014, the Masters wrapped up with Bubba Watson being awarded the winner's green jacket. The 35-year-old earned a lead after a 5-birdie streak in the second round, eventually going on to finish the final round with a final score of 8 under par for the 3-shot victory. The win, his second Masters in 3 years, no doubt proves he's one of the best, but according to Watson himself, all that matters is the love of the game, not the fame. And moving on, the K-League is getting ready to welcome a new team to its ranks. Elan submitted the official documents to join the league by next season. The conglomerate made its intentions known last week, but handed in its formal proposal to K-League Commissioner Kwon Oh-kap on Monday. They'll start in the second division, the K-League Challenge, and plan to use Jamsil Olympic Stadium in Seoul as their home field. And speaking of home field, Liverpool maintains the top spot in the Premier League after winning at home, while Atletico leads La Liga in Spain. The title races in both the English and Spanish leagues are heating up. In the EPL, a win over Man City allowed Liverpool to maintain their lead, especially from Chelsea, who sits 2 points back. Meanwhile, in Spain, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid both won, but Atletico keeps their 3-point lead over the Galacticos. Now let's end with a look at the KBO standings. After 3 weekends of ball, NC unexpectedly leads on the leaderboard. The Dinos stand above Nexon and SK with a higher win rate bolstered by their sweep of the Twins over the weekend. Lotte comes in at 4th at 2 games above 500. And now we go on to the bottom of the order. Kia leads the cellar dwellers, or rather Tucson leads all the cellar dwellers, while Hamsung earned a much-needed win after a good first outing by veteran Im Chang-yong. And that's all I have for now. This has been Stephen Chen. I'll see you back here later for more from the world of sports.
Well, today was a perfect day to get outside and enjoy the outdoors, and some even ventured out wearing their light summer attire.
Yes, it certainly was a beautiful day, and for more on tomorrow's weather outlook, we turn to our Kim Bo-kyung standing at the Weather Center. Hi, Bo-kyung.
Well, guys, hope your week got off to a good start because the weather certainly did, and you can expect more warm and sunny conditions tomorrow. Due to winds blowing from the east to west, eastern coastal regions will rise above seasonal averages. In fact, as you can see, Daegu is forecast to peak at 28 degrees. The mercury will continue to rise through Wednesday before 4 nationwide showers fall between Thursday and Friday, adding some much-needed moisture to the dry atmosphere. Currently, due to a high-pressure system from the West Sea, we're seeing clear skies across the map. You'll still feel a big change in temperatures between the morning and evening, so please be sure to grab a thin cardigan before heading out. Most of all, be sure to make the most out of this lovely spring weather while you can. On to Tuesday's readings. Seoul tops out at 19 degrees. Gwangju and Busan reach the mid-20s. Other regions such as Jeju makes it to 20 degrees, while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang top out at 16 and 20. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Pyongyang, and that's our newscast on this Monday night. I'm Choi Yusun in Seoul.
And I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.